Hey guys, in this video I wanted to talk to you today about what you need to know to be able to write decent family adventure music for movie trailers like the Wonka trailer or the Pan trailer or the Pinocchio trailer. This kind of great, awe-inspiring fantasy wonderment. Let's dive in. Okay, so there's a few things that you need to know to be able to write this stuff. And I'm going to go through each one throughout this video, because these are the core things that will help you and enable you to write adventure music quickly and easily. I'm talking fantastical adventure music. I'm not talking sort of swashbuckling pirate music. I'm talking stuff that feels like wonder. Fairies, okay, pirates, wonderful characters like Willy Wonka. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is to establish your orchestration, the instruments you are going to be using in your track. So in this track I have, just as a side note, I spent an hour and 10 minutes recording myself writing this, and then when I stopped recording it, it said, recording failed. So yeah, that was annoying. I digress. Here we go. I've got a piano for sketching. Now, tuned percussion. Tuned percussion is this wonderful thing that immediately brings you into the world, into this wonderful childlike world. Now, with regards to tuned percussion, we're kind of sitting on the canon of classical music and the classical music that was played over silent films and what of that catalogue was played during certain scenes. And because of that classical music canon, when we hear tuned percussion, it reminds us of childlike wonder. So, if you are writing a film score and you want to have childlike wonder, use tuned percussion. And it's there immediately. You'll notice it. Keep your eye out and your ears out for when you hear tuned percussion. You go, oh, kids. Oh, childlike wonder. Or, oh, a fantasy realm. Oh, a cupboard that's magic. This is where you go, childlike wonder with the tuned percussion. Okay, so we're going to load up a tuned percussion. The tuned percussion I have is a Celeste, which is kind of like a keyboard where it hits metal bars. It's a fantastic instrument. Beautiful. And that's the Spitfire Celeste from the Spitfire Percussion. Same with the Spitfire Glock. Glockenspiel. The Vibes, which we know and love from jazz, but also they're a wonderful kind of like deeper, richer, warmer sound to the quite piercing Glockenspiel and Celeste. And I've got a couple of other Glockenspiels from the London Solo Percussion, which is an older sample library, but they're nice and close, and they bring a bit of depth. And this one sounds... I think I programmed it wrong, so anyway. And Music Box. Which I don't really need to explain, but we all know that the Music Box has incredible connotations of childhood. Now we have brass, metals, percussion, strings short and strings long. I'm going full orchestra. I could have woodwinds if I wanted. I chose not to have woods in this. So my brass, this is all Jaeger as far as I'm concerned. As far as, I've got horns and trumpets, legato, horns legato. So the horns are going to take a lot of the lead lines in this stuff. Trumpets will double up that when we need a particularly heroic moment. Horns rips if needed. I would probably bounce that in place and then use the audio file to line up. Trombones, again, can take the kind of like badly played top line, which a lot of people don't really acknowledge. A lot of people will just go, yeah, trombones. Let's get that kind of like raspy low end, which is great, especially with bass trombones. But the trombones are also really, really good at taking a lead line. And then we've got horns for sustain. rather than the legato. And then we've got trombones double with tubas, and then low brass. Hello. So for that extra trailer rasp. Nothing crazy. Metals is lots of, we need splooshes, so, and we need triangles, and we need some piatis. Where are you? Some other symbols, and a mark tree, which is the chime bars. Now, those metals are there to give that sparkling shimmer again. We don't often rely on metals in trailer music. We often rely on sort of gut-punching low-end drums with kind of like face-slapping mid-toms. Whereas here, this is like fairy dust, yay, and big splooshing, crashing waves. So we want the metals for that. Percussion is pretty much timpani, guys. Timpani, I've got some snares to take over a little bit of accents. I've got an orchestral bass drum, and it's variations of timpani. So it's whether they've got the rods, or whether they've got the sticks, or whether they're playing with the soft mallet. And then I've obviously got my short strings and my long strings. Nothing special, really. I think it's either Spitfire Audio, Spitfire Albion, or Metropolis Arc, I believe, for both of those. I like the wetness of Metropolis Arc, but I really like the delicacy of the Spitfire Albion stuff. Now, they're the instrumentations that you will have. Now, there's a couple of cheeky little ones that I really must talk about, and that's violin harmonics and violin tremolos. Using those in your first act is really a real easy win, and you can use those in any kind of like drop down, any kind of stop down actually as well. Tremolos, because what tremolos do is they give you that sense of waiting, of tension, of something is coming, and that's really important, especially when we're sort of loading up this, you know, especially when we're thinking in terms of that, this kind of like, whoo, sparkling shimmer, tension, which is really, really important. So we've got all our instruments loaded up. Some will probably come in. I might bring in some woods, but at this point in time, it's now talking about the theory behind adventure music and family adventure, family wonder, you know, fantasy adventure, all this kind of lovely world of, like I said, of Willy Wonka, of Peter Pan, of you name it, any other sort of wonderful fairy tale. It's the scales. So when we go to write stuff, I'm going to use the tune percussion. When we go to write stuff, we often sit there and go, let's write in the major scale. Yay! Which is fine. And you can do that in adventure because a lot of the heavy lifting is done with the orchestration. And then you go, well, I want it to be a bit sad, so I'm going to write in the minor scale. Which, again, is fine. That is the natural minor scale. But what if you wanted to add some other flavours, some other chords? And that's when you go, why don't I try another scale or another mode? And the modes are just basically iterations of a scale that we know, but with changes in the intervals. So that the mode that we're talking about here is going to be the melodic minor scale. So that, for any of you who don't know, is a C natural minor scale, or a natural minor scale with a major 6 and a major 7. So it sounds like this. So you get the kind of darkness of a minor scale, but then the lightness of having a perfect fourth and a perfect fifth within it. So you can then go C minor to F major, and then to G. Ooh, beautiful. That's the melodic minor. But then you can mix that up with the natural minor, which you know, which would be C, D, E, F, G, and then A flat, B flat, C. So flat and 6, flat and 7. Which we all know and love, and you can do some brilliant stuff with the natural minor. There we go. But if we mix up the melodic and the natural minor, then we can introduce some curious changes. So let's say I'm in the natural minor, C minor, but then I want to go to melodic minor to introduce that F major. But then I go back to the natural minor for the E flat major chord. And then I go back to the melodic minor for the major 5 chord, the G. So we've got this. Wonderful chord progression. And that's just by exploring other modes and other scales. And you could do the same where you go, well, how about I use the Lydian mode, which is a major scale with a sharp 4. Now, for those of you not sure what that means it's a C major scale in C with an F sharp instead of an F natural. So you can then get this. You get this. You get the second chord is a major chord, which is really good because it gives you, when you have these like major chords, when you don't feel they should be there, it gives you this lightness, this lift, and that's what Lydian is brilliant for. It gives you this feeling of lift and of lightness. And in film scores, in film composing, you would hear the Lydian mode all the time for scenes of flying, you know. I'm flying! You know, it just gives you this wonderful lightness that you don't get from any other mode. You can, of course, do the... It's a harmonic minor mode, which is Lydian flat 7, I think. I forget what it's called. In the C, in C, it would be a Lydian, C Lydian, F sharp, with a B flat, and then you'd be like, hello, Thomas Newman. who Thomas Newman loves that mode. So this is what we do. We take our knowledge of the instrumentation and we take our knowledge of other modes and other scales. So in this instance, I'm going to choose that chord progression I showed you, which is the melodic minor and the natural minor together. C minor, F, E flat, G. I'm going to use that as a way to bring lightness and curio. That sense of like, ooh, of wonder. And that's really, really important. Now, the other thing, once you've got the instruments you've chosen, once you've picked out a scale or a mode that you like, you then go, right, voicings. It's so very tempting for all of us to go root note voicing, root note voicing, root note voicing, root note voicing. But what happens if you avoid those root note voicings and you use a different chord inversion? And that means a different bass note from the chord. So if I was in C minor, I could have an E flat as my bass note. And then you can create a sense of movement and growth with your bass. And that's really important for getting this sense of tension, okay? Because you can get tension in so many ways, and changing the chord inversions is a real easy win. So if I was to just show you an example, you go root note inversion, or root note voicing, root note voicing, first inversion, and then I go up to the first inversion. I'm using the bass to create melody and create tension, and that's one of the tricks to this genre is to allow the bass to do a lot of the lifting and a lot of the moving as well. It doesn't have to always be root note inversions because it makes for an interesting sound when you play it like that. And the other thing you've got to think now is in terms of there isn't a hard and fast rule for what inversions work and when, because it depends on how close you link the chords. So for instance, if I'm in brass and I go I've got those rips sounding, by the way, so let's get okay, you can get away with a lot in strings, so let's go. Hear that? That's 1 3. Oh, here we go. It's too muddy. But if I go octave Gs and then an E there and a C there, it sounds much better because I've spread the voicing out, even though I've got the 5th note in the bottom of my C major chord, and I've got the 3rd in my F down here. Doing that, you suddenly hear this other sound from the familiar. And that's what we need in this genre. We need it to feel all of these other sounds that they feel familiar, but they're really, really important because they allow us to take what we know as familiar and put it into this other world. It's this other place, and we go, ooh, wonder. And that's a really, really important part of this. So I'm going to recap because this stuff is so essential for being able to write decent, awe-inspiring adventure music. Orchestration. Choose your instruments carefully, focusing on bringing in tuned percussion, metals, bring this element of shimmer, this element of childlike wonder. If you can bring it in other ways, great. I have used synths before to do the same thing because they evoke the same feeling. Once you've done that, you then choose your articulations as well. Like I've got the harmonics and tremolos. Now tremolos, really overlooked. Don't forget about tremolos, really important. And you can use longer short notes. So you don't always have to do really edgy spiccato. So if I take this out, so I've got my classic spiccato, well, within a sample library that is, but then you also want to have shorts because you want it to not always feel so edgy and hard. With this stuff, we want an element of softness and of lightness, and those articulations will bring that for you. Then you choose your scales and your key. Okay, like I said, you can go, okay, well, how about I do this? C major, C minor, G major, G minor. Because I'm just shifting what we know, just chromatically. Those chromatic movements do so much for this feeling of otherworldliness. I'm trying to find other words to do with fantasy and fantastical and fairy tales and sparkly and shimmery and sprinkly and ooh and ah, it's going from between major and minor, going into different modes and changing key in your track as well. So, you can do borrowed dominance and all that stuff as well, where you take, if you wanted to land on a D minor, if you say you're in C, and I wanted to land on a D minor, you take the 5th chord of D minor, which is A. I'm going to go to A, so that when I land on my D minor, it feels like a new chord, even though it's just going C to D minor. But this, borrowing the 5th from the key of D and chuck it in the key of C, you go, what? Who did this? And these things are so useful and so important when you've got this. So if I was to try that with the chord sequence I was using, which is C minor, F, E flat, G. But let's say I wanted to do it like I borrow the fifth chord from F, which is C7. I go C minor, C7, F, E flat. Or I could do it, so the fifth chord of E flat would be B flat. So I could go C minor, F, B flat 7, E. So even these things where you just borrow one chord, you're not strictly changing key. You're just borrowing a chord from another key for the harmonic purposes. You're going, haha, I'm going to take you and use you to make that landing on that chord feel like a win. And then the other thing you must remember is suspensions still work like a charm. They're still really useful. So, we've got our orchestration, our articulations, our keys and our modes, and our chord choices. And now we're ready to start writing family adventure music. Because so much of this from here on in is going to rely on you being able to quickly sketch a cue, and you can watch this video here which shows you how to quickly sketch a trailer cue. Take that knowledge, apply it to the knowledge that I've shown you in this video, and then all of a sudden you can go, okay, so I'm going to choose that chord sequence that Rich was using, C minor, F, E flat, G7. I'm going to borrow that and I'm going to quickly sketch out a cue using hits or using a piano. I'm going to sketch out, and then the rest is filling in the details. It's really, it's a lot of fun. If you do this groundwork of exploring other modes, exploring other instruments, a lot of it then becomes about the minor details towards the end. I hope you found this useful, and I hope this helps you crack the amazing genre that is family adventure. I'll see you in the next one.